YouTubers, welcome back to Desert Have a Garden. In order to expand our offerings of sourdough creations, I want to share with you today the Hawaiian Sweet bread recipe. So again, this uses my bread machine because I like to keep things as simple as possible. So I'll get right into it. I'll show you our ingredients to start with. We have regular flour. You can use a bread flour, all-purpose flour. I prefer something that's either organic or non-GMO. Unbleached is better. Our next dry ingredient is coconut milk powder. Now you can also use dry milk powder. If you prefer dairy, that's fine either way. I like the flavor of the coconut milk powder because I find it really contributes to that Hawaiian flavor. And then we have salt, and over here our wet ingredients. We have honey, our starter, oil. So for your oil, you can use vegetable oil if that's what you prefer, but I like to use coconut oil. And if it's cold weather, your coconut oil will be solid, so you can gently warm it up on the stove or in the microwave. I don't know that I would do it in the microwave, but probably on the stove. Just barely get it warm so it melts. It melts around 76, 77 degrees. And then we will need 1 egg and pineapple juice. So you'll need 3/4 cup of pineapple juice up to 1 cup, but I usually find 3/4 cup is sufficient. And you can buy those cans of pineapple juice and use that, or bottled pineapple juice, however you want to get it. But what I like to do is the day before I make Hawaiian sweet bread, I make pizza for the kids, and they like Hawaiian pizza. So I'll get one of those cans of pineapple chunks and I'll drain it into a measuring cup, and usually it's right around 3/4 cup to 1 cup of juice in the pineapple chunks. And so I use the pineapple on the pizza and save the juice for the bread. So let's go ahead and get started. As with all of my bread recipes, I use the dry ingredients first. That way when it starts mixing in the machine, you don't want to get a situation where the flour is puffing out the top of the machine, making a big mess. So let's get started with our flour. And for this recipe, it does use 4 cups of flour. Okay, so we've got our flour in there. And next we will use our coconut milk powder. And for this it is 2 tablespoons. I find it gives that nice coconut complementing flavor to the sweetness. 2 tablespoons of the coconut milk powder. And for this recipe, you do still want some salt, but you don't want it quite as salty. So I would say a scant teaspoon of salt. If you have the size of the measuring spoon, you can use 3/4 teaspoon. Doesn't have to be perfectly exact. Okay, and then we will add our wet ingredients. So we have our egg, and the egg in this recipe kind of provides more moisture, some chewiness. It also tones down the sourness of the bread. It really brings it all together nicely. Then I will add my coconut oil. There's 2 tablespoons of coconut oil or vegetable oil. And I do the oil right before I do the honey. That way the measuring spoon is coated in oil and the honey will slip right off of the spoon in that case. And I'm getting low on honey. I do have an order coming in. For honey, you'll want probably 3 to 4 tablespoons. And today I'm going to be a little bit short, but that's okay. Everybody will still love it anyway. Now I get a lot of my products from Azure Standard. They're a really great company that they offer natural and organic products to their customers, and they do drop shipments in order to save on shipping. So only once a month do they deliver. but they deliver in a big rig truck and you kind of go meet them. It feels a lot like a co-op, and they give you really great prices. So I'll put a link in the comments below if you're interested in seeing if you have a drop nearby you, so you can check them out. But I find that their prices are really competitive, and I like supporting small businesses. And then we will add our 3/4 cup pineapple juice. And last but not least is our starter. So the star of the show is our starter, and you see it's nice and happy with all of its bubbles. And if you were to make this recipe with regular yeast, you could do the exact same recipe with dry yeast, and you would just add 2 teaspoons of dry yeast, or 1 packet, however that works out. But because this is about sourdough, we're going to use sourdough. And the sourdough kind of gives it a little bit of extra complexity to the flavor, and it makes it really a delightful loaf. So we empty the starter into a bowl, so you see it here, and we're just going to mix it up. And remember, mixing it helps it release the carbon dioxide that's built up in it, the bubbles, and you can never overmix the starter. So you see this is nice and thick and elastic. It is ready to make bread. So now we will get 2 cups of our starter. My helper's coming to see what's going on over here. And it doesn't have to be exact, but approximate. In a minute, buddy, okay? Okay. Do you want to say hi to the video? No? Come on over. You have to come over closer. Where are you? Say hello. All right, let's finish making our bread and then we'll talk about that.
Okay.
Okay. So now we have all of our ingredients in our bread pan for the mixing machine, and I will get the machine set up and we will start mixing. Okay, I've got the bread machine set out and plugged in, and I put our little pot in there so you see everything. I was actually able to scrape out the rest of the honey out of that jar, so I'm probably pretty close to 3 tablespoons in there now. And using this bread machine, I'm going to select number 8, the dough setting. So we're on 8, and you simply press start. Doesn't get much easier than that. And here it begins mixing. Now, one thing I don't know that I have explained previously, whenever I make my sourdough recipes, I start in the morning, with the exception of pancakes and waffles. But everything else I make in the morning because making bread is about a 7 to 10 hour endeavor, even though the majority of the time is inactive. You know, you're not doing anything, but you don't want to have to wake up in the middle of the night or super early in the morning to start making bread or do a second kneading. So you can see my flour's kind of puffing out a little bit like I told you, but putting the wet ingredients on top kind of helps with that a little bit. But anyway, so I start my bread recipes in the morning and do my baking in the evening, and that's how the timing works out for this. The dough is starting to form together a little bit better. Now that it's been kneading for some time, you see that all the ingredients have pulled together into a nice round dough, and it just keeps mixing it. I think I could add just a little bit more flour. I may add a couple tablespoons here just because it does still look quite moist. But to get ready for the next step of this recipe, as I put in the title, this is for bread loaves, or it can also be for rolls. So in order to show you both ways, I'm going to make 1 loaf and 1 pan of rolls. So I'm going to use my square 8-inch pan to make the rolls, but otherwise you could make 2 loaves with this, or you can make a whole bunch of rolls. And you could get fancy with how you like to shape your rolls too, but after it rises, we'll come back and knead it some more
Actually, on second thought, I'm not going to add any flour. This actually looks really good. If your dough looks like this and it's not coming off, sticking to your finger, I would just leave it be. And this recipe tends not to be quite as sticky just because it involves the use of oil, and the oil makes it less sticky and easier to handle. So anyways, we'll let this rise for about, well, at least 4 hours, but up to 6 hours. Then we will knead it again and come back to start shaping our loaves and rolls. Okay, it has been about 8 hours. My day worked out where I was away for a while out of the house, so this rose longer than I normally would have. But you can see it's very puffy and very full. And so on the machine, you just start the cycle again to cause it to start kneading, and let it knead it until it's nice and smooth and back down to a manageable size with all the air let out of it. You can see it's deflating it and gathering it back into a ball. So I'll let that knead for a bit, and then we'll prepare our pans in order to get it ready for its second rise. All right, I have the dough kneaded in the pot, and I'm ready to start forming it into my loaves. So I'm going to use my regular bread pan for one loaf, and then my square pan for the rolls. And I grease that with coconut oil. You can also use butter to grease it. So you don't want it to stick after it's done baking, so you go ahead and grease that. And then same with the bread loaf. Okay. And there is our dough. You can see what it looks like there. So I'm going to break this in half for our loaf. And you can just twist it like that. And then to form it, I like to just roll it. I like to roll it between my hands to make a nice loaf. And you may not have had Hawaiian sweet bread in a loaf form before, but it actually is really nice for making sandwiches. You can also have it to accompany a soup or anything else. It's nice just to toast with some butter as well. Okay, so here we have our loaf shape, and I'll just put that into that pan to rise. And then we have the rest for making rolls. So I usually use a knife to do this, and I start cutting it into smaller pieces. These into thirds, and each little one I kind of roll just to make a loose roll shape. Now you can make them whatever shape you want. If you like to have, I don't know, crescent rolls or something like that, you can make them whatever shape you want, but I just do that. Kind of little balls round in my hands. And you can stick them in the pan. They can touch each other. It's fine like that, because they kind of pull apart, just like when you buy Hawaiian rolls and they're kind of stuck together, and you just pull them gently apart and they kind of break apart. So here I'm going to do rows of 4, and they'll fit in there nice and snug. Sorry for the noise in the background. I have my tea kettle going at the same time. I probably could have used a bigger pan for these. Okay, so that's what the rolls look like. They're slipping in there because it's greased, but that's the rolls. So what I will do now is I'll cover them both with plastic wrap and allow them to rise. Now, if you're just making rolls, they don't have to rise that long. You could only allow them to rise for like an hour or a half hour, as long as you've done enough rising altogether for your sourdough. But they don't have to get super puffy, because they will in fact get a little bit more puffy as they bake. So I'm going to allow this to rest longer though, because I do have a loaf. I'll probably let it go for about 2 hours, and then we will get started. 2 hours later, and we have nice fluffy dough here. So you gently remove the plastic wrap, and so we have our loaf and our rolls. Please back up from the oven. And the oven is preheated to 350 degrees. And the rolls should take quite a bit less time than the loaf, but I anticipate the rolls to take about 25 minutes and the loaf to take about 35. So we'll check back in about 25 minutes. I'll set my timer so I don't forget what I'm doing. Okay, here we are, 25 minutes later, and they're looking pretty good. I will pull the rolls out right now and put them up here. I think I'm going to give the loaf just a little bit more time and check back on it in 5 minutes. All right, this is looking nice and ready. I'd say that that is ready. So I'm going to pull this out of the oven and put it up on top with the rolls. All right, let's look at that. See how pretty that is? Golden brown, and look how high it rose. I think it's the egg in there that may help it rise, but if you're an expert, you can leave it in the comments what you think causes this type of bread to rise so much higher than the others. So with rolls, you only need to allow them to cool enough until you can handle them comfortably to begin eating them right away. And for the bread, you want to allow it to cool quite a bit more before you start slicing it, so it doesn't sink in the middle or get gummy in the middle. So we will allow these to cool for a bit, and then we will dig right in. All right, our rolls are cool enough to eat, and I'll show them to you. They're out of the pan. And so at this point, what you can do is you just break them apart. You see lots of steam coming out of there. How light and flaky and fluffy they are. And then we have our taste tester here. Would you like some butter?
Yeah.
Okay.
Hi. I was saying hi to the camera.
My knife got hot from cutting the roll, and so the butter slipped off. All right. Spread some butter in there. Let's see what you think.
Hot.
What do you think?
Good.
It's good. All right. Well, if you liked this video, please give me a thumbs up and subscribe for more updates in the future. And we will see you next time.